All right, we are back here on the Just End the Suffering podcast. We did a deep dive into the prospects with Bill Bennett of the Sporting News. Now we're going to do a mock draft here, second annual mock draft on the podcast. Last year we did it live with our guest and unofficial co-host Will Stein. Did a little homework ahead of time, make us easier to digest. Join me once again, the great Alan Austin with us. Alan, how are you?
I'm well, Mike. How are you today?
Very good. I'm excited to do the mock draft again. It was a lot of fun, and we were doing this offline last night, doing the picks. So it was definitely entertaining to see the directions we were going.
Absolutely, and it's one of my favorite days of the year, specifically the first round of the NFL draft. There's so much excitement, there's so much hype, and for the two of us, whose favorite teams each have two top 10 picks, it's going to be extra exciting. You know, whether or not those picks are remaining in the top 10 when the draft actually comes, we shall see. But as of now, both of our teams have two in the top 10. Very, very exciting.
Absolutely. So to set up the stakes here, Alan and I did the drafting over 2 days via text. We were recording on Tuesday, April 19th. The draft is coming up on Thursday when you're listening to this. So if there is a big trade between now and then, we're sorry, but just scheduling-wise, this is when we had to do it.
Absolutely. And it's not like, I would think, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, the people who are trading are the people who are going to just try and get one of these very few quarterbacks in the draft. I don't see anyone really moving up for positions because there's a lot of good, talented, skilled position players in this draft.
Yeah, I was referring more to the possibility that like maybe one of these veteran receivers gets traded, whether it's like a
that's always possible.
Debo Samuel, A.J. Brown, somebody like that. But I feel like that's going to be closer to the actual draft than this far out.
Absolutely.
All right, so to reset here, we are going through here. Alan did the odd picks. I did the evens. There was no trading involved, though. When we get specific teams, we can mention teams we think might trade, but it was just too complicated to say, oh, we're going to trade, 16 and 19 for number 7. We're not going to do that on this exercise.
Correct.
All right, so we're going to go through here 4 at a time, so give some quick takeaways here. Pick number 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Alan has them taking Michigan defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. Number 2, I have the Lions taking Georgia defensive end Trayvon Walker. Number 3, Alan has the Texans taking NC State offensive tackle Ikem Ekwonu. And at 4, I have the Jets taking Oregon defensive end Kayvon Thibodeau. Let's start at the top here, Alan. Why was Hutchinson the top pick for the Jags?
So there's no lock consensus one, but he's at the top of most boards. He seems like he's going to be a reliable NFL pro, and I think Doug Peterson taking over that franchise has to be like just foaming at the mouth, ready to have him join his defensive core. This is a new team, a year after the Urban Meyer debacle. I think they're going to go with the safest pick, and at this point, the safest pick is also arguably the best. So I just think it's too good a pick to have Hutchinson slip by, even with a stacked defensive end edge rusher class. I think he's the safe pick, and I think he's the pick Doug Peterson will make to head into his Jaguars tenure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Trayvon Walker talk has been popping up the last week or so. I think it's a big smokescreen. I think it's a lot of just trying to divert attention to what their true intentions are, which to me, I don't always get unless you're not sold the guy at number 1. You're looking for somebody to trade there, but nobody's going to think he's going to trade out this year. You're
right. I never understand why the first overall team needs to throw smoke screens around. They're going to get who they want. So what's the point?
Yeah, it is. What's the point? On this batch, I also got to mention here, I have the Jets taking Thibodeau at number 4. I know there's been a lot of talk about, does he care about football? Is there bust potential here? Because this talk we heard about his also talk we heard about Josh Rosen. Does he have bigger interest in football? We saw what happened to Rosen here. But I think given the fit between the team and the system, I think Thibodeau has to be the pick for the Jets.
I think if he falls to 4, which I think is highly likely, the Jets, if they scoop him up, it would be a real, real nice find at 4 because he was the pre-real draft dig before the college football season. He was the number 1 overall prospect. So to have him fall to 4, he's still super talented. I know there are some question marks, but I think that'd be great value at 4 for a player like Thibodeau for the Jets.
Absolutely. Let's go to the next 4 picks here, 5 to 8. The Giants at 5. Allen is taking Ole Miss offensive tackle Charles Cross. I have the Panthers taking Alabama offensive tackle Evan Neal at 6. At 7, Allen has the Giants taking Florida State defensive end Jermaine Johnson. And at 8, I have the Falcons taking Liberty quarterback Malik Lewis. So let's start with the 2 Giant picks here. So You have the Giants taking Charles Cross over Evan Neal. Why'd you make that choice?
Mainly because he's been linked to the Giants more. They really, really love his polish coming out of college. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a huge transition period to the NFL. And I think that really entices the coaching staff. And it's so weird to me that Evan Neal has seemingly done nothing wrong, but he's one of those players that keeps slipping in the draft boards. And I think teams are just falling in love with Ikwonu and Cross more so than Neal, but I think all three are top tier talent, and to get any one of those three is to really improve your offensive line. And I went with Cross simply because he seems to be the name the Giants are most infatuated with of the three.
Yeah, I gave Neal the Panthers too. I thought about giving a quarterback there, but they have so many offensive line aids. I feel like a guy like Neal could play about 3 or 4 different spots, make a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, the Panthers are the most intriguing probably of these top, 6, 7 picks, mainly because Matt Rule's in a make or break year. Sam Darnold's getting paid a ton of money. They've got to figure out what they're doing. And I really think whoever they draft at quarterback is going to be under a new regime next year anyway, and they might just be a lame duck draft pick. I feel like what the Panthers should do as an organization is take the pick away from Rule and draft an offensive lineman that they can keep for whoever comes next, because I really don't think the Panthers are going to be all that good. I could see Rule getting fired. So I think from an organizational standpoint, I love your pick.
Yeah, I think so too. The Giants pick at 7, you have them taking Jermaine Johnson. This is a spot that could be traded out of. If I was doing the pick, I would consider Ahmad Gardner, because obviously they have the James Bradbury situation still going on here. So why Johnson?
Yeah, I thought about the Bradbury Sauce Gardner thing. To me, Sauce is the hot player of the week. I feel like a lot of people are jumping on his bandwagon, and for good cause. But I think with these really elite edge rushers, to nail one of them down and get them on the roster would be fantastic. And I think, a good pass rush makes an average corner better. So if you can really stack that defensive line, I know they weren't good last year, but to add Johnson, who kind of shadows as a 4-3 defensive end, 3-4, outside linebacker, to get that kind of versatility, pair him with Ojulari, who you hope improves this year. And I think that'd be a really nice tandem. And I just think that is the more enticing situation for me personally. But if they go with Gardner, I wouldn't be upset.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense as well. I can see the logic behind that pick. And I took Willis number 8 for the Falcons. And I think, as the Australian Matt Ryan, they don't have a long-term quarterback. They signed Marcus Mariota to be a bridge quarterback there. And I think they're in the ideal situation where they have an innovative young offensive coach. They have a quarterback who can help mentor Willis, who needs some time on the sideline here. I think they are off in the rebuild. They can say, okay, we'll take Willis, sit him for a year, and then he's hopefully ready to play by year 2. I think it makes sense for them to do that here.
I do too. By the way, we'll talk quarterbacks real quick. He's probably my favorite of this group, but it is a shallow pool.
Very shallow pool. I think it's one thing that, if the pick here is Willis, something the Giants could obviously keep an eye on here at 7. They're trying to trade out of that pick and get a future 1. So you could look at a team maybe like New Orleans or Pittsburgh if they love Malik Willis and say, hey, the Falcons probably going to take it behind us. If you want to make sure you get him, go ahead up here and get it.
Yeah, and you would know more about this, but I heard a rumor that the Giants can't keep their 2 top 10 picks simply because of budget. So they seemingly are forced to move one of them, which would be heartbreaking. But if we can get another one out of it, I wouldn't be that upset.
I don't think they have to. I think they could I think this is where Bradbury comes in. They're going to basically, his money's going to end up freeing up the money to pay these picks if they have to stay there. But I do think that they would prefer to get another one next year in case they want to draft a quarterback next season.
Which is going to be the better class. This season's class, I think, you're getting a little bit of your classic pre-draft overhype just because quarterback's the money position and they want to sell quarterbacks come draft time, to the general public. But I do think we are overreaching on this year's class. Honestly, I don't think there are any real true first-round quarterbacks in this draft, at least top end of the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the next 4 picks here. Allen gave the Seahawks the aforementioned Sauce Gardner at corner from Cincinnati. At 10, with the Jets' second pick, I have to take Ohio State wide receiver Garrett Wilson. 11, the newly minted Washington Commanders are taking Notre Dame safety Kyle Hamilton. And number 12 with the Vikings taking LSU cornerback Derek Stingley. So let's take a look at that Jets' second pick here with the Garrett Wilson thing, which is they've been doing a lot of homework on the receiver class. They've had basically every top receiving prospect come to Florham Park to talk to them. I think they're still trying to get the proven receiver where they could have a guy like A.J. Brown or Deebo Samuel come in and be the guy right away. But I think if they stay put at 10, I think they're taking a receiver.
Now, why Garrett Wilson over the others? That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I think in terms of just, pure route running ability, I think he's the most polished of the group. Drake London has upside in terms of his physical tools, but I think they want a guy who's more of a classic guy that can move all around the field, opposed to like a true burner like Drake London has.
No, I think if you're the Jets, you want to give people that Wilson can rely on, who are probably a little bit more polished than some of the other prospects. So I think you sacrifice certain skills over reliability at this point for the Jets are at. That's just my viewpoint of it.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense here. And all the secondary guys need to fit in good spots. Derek Stingley, I'm fascinated with the Vikings because obviously he had the tremendous freshman year at LSU. They need a cornerback badly. I think if he is healthy, Stingley would be a great value for them.
Absolutely. And in my full mock draft, I have them taking him as well. He's a guy who is seemingly medium risk, high reward. So I think if he falls to them there, it's a big, big win for their organization.
All right, we'll go to the next 4 picks here. Alan has the Houston Texans taking Georgia defensive tackle Jordan Davis. I have the Ravens taking Purdue defensive end George Karlaftis. Allen has the Eagles taking Alabama wideout Jameson Williams. And I have the Saints taking Northern Iowa offensive tackle Trevor Penning to help replace the departed Teron Armstead who signed in Miami here. I want to talk about the Jameson Williams pick, which the Eagles have been taking a wide receiver the past 2 years. The first round took Jalen Reagor in 2020. In 2021, they took Devonta Smith. They go back to the Alabama well here. Why did you give them Jameson Williams?
So a couple reasons. One is if Jalen Hurts is going to, succeed, he can't just keep heaving the ball down the field to Devontae and Reagor and some of these guys and hoping for the best. Williams is a massive talent who can fit in the slot where he can be their kind of, Tyreek Hill-esque type player. So you can have Hurts get rid of the ball quickly, dump it off to, the 6-foot Williams who can run like a madman and just kind of open up that offense. I think he's the perfect fit for the Eagles. And I'd be actually shocked if he falls to them. I don't necessarily think he will, but if he does and they can get him, just a tremendous pickup for them. And it kind of reminds me the way they've been drafting receivers, the way the Lions did a few years back, which I know you remember well, where year after year, the Lions just took receiver. And the Eagles are there now because they've missed on a couple and Jalen Reagor doesn't seem to be the guy. So Devontae and Jameson, both Alabama guys coming in to help Hurts, I just think that would add a whole new element to that Eagles offense, which Hurts specifically desperately needs the option.
Yeah, Williams is a fascinating guy for me to watch. Because obviously, I think if he doesn't tear his ACL in the playoff there, I think that he is probably the top receiver off the board. I know the Jets have talked to him. I think it's interesting where you're going to sacrifice some short term from 2022. Maybe he doesn't start the season on time, but maybe he has the best long term upside of the entire class.
And I think his style of play, helps him get back on the field in a strategic standpoint quicker because, he can be a short burst guy. And I don't think that he will be intimidated by the NFL. So I think he'd be a really nice addition to that team.
All right, let's go to the next 4 picks here. Number 17 to 20. Allen has the Chargers taking Utah linebacker Devin Lloyd. I have the Eagles taking Washington quarterback Trent McDuffie with their second first-round pick. Allen has the Saints taking Ohio State wide receiver Chris Olave. And number 20, I have the Steelers taking the second quarterback of the first round, quarterback Kenny Pickett from Pitt, so a homecoming for him. So let's start with Devin Lloyd here. Why did you give him the Chargers?
Chargers are looking to improve that defense. I know they took a first-round linebacker, but he's a really nice professional player. And he really improved his passing. That AFC West is a passing division. And he really improved his passing defense over the last couple of years. And he's going to be a good guy who can rotate in and out. He's a good first and second down linebacker. He's a great tackle for loss guy. I think he'll just add some nice, prevention defense from the run for those teams on early downs. Now, the one knock would be that he is more of a first, second down linebacker, but he is probably the best linebacker in this draft, depending on who you ask. I know there's a lot of people who have different opinions, but I think he is a starting, outside linebacker in the NFL right now, and I think the Chargers would love to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of Kenny Pickett here, I know the Steelers just had Ben retire. They signed Mitch Trubisky to a short-term contract here, but I think they've been doing their homework on all the quarterbacks. I think Pickett being from Pitt, staying home, I think would be a good fit for them. I think they're a organization where they feel like, we have good defense, we have good support system around the quarterback, and we get a guy who is a solid start, we can win with him. So I feel like that's why they're going to take Pickett here if he's there.
There are certain quarterbacks in certain systems who play better than they are. I mean, I don't know how you feel about Mac Jones, but I think if he was in another system on another team, he wouldn't have done anything last year. And I think Pickett's the same guy. He's got to find the right system where he can succeed. And if it isn't, he's a career backup, and that'll be that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Go down 21-24. You had the Patriots taking Iowa center Tyler Linderbaum. I had the Packers giving Aaron Rodgers a weapon with USC wide receiver Drake London. Analyze the Cardinals addressing the cornerback need with Clemson's Andrew Booth Jr. And the Cowboys bolstering their offensive line with Boston College guard Zion Johnson. Start with Linderbaum of the Patriots. I think it's probably the more interesting picks of this group.
Sure. Well, I think Linderbaum is, by skill, a top 10 player in the draft. The problem is he's a center, and there's very little value taking a center that high in the draft. I think if Belichick sees a player of his capacity, although he might be limited to center, but he might be able to move to guard. And I just think if Belichick sees him sitting there as talented as he is, he's not going to let him go.
Yeah, plus there's the connection with Iowa with Kirk Ferentz, the head coach there. So I'm sure he's gotten all the information he needs on Linderbaum from Ferentz.
Absolutely. I think that would be a classic Patriots pick if he's default to them.
Yeah. I think in terms of the receivers here, I gave Drake London to the Packers because I feel like Aaron Rodgers has been asking for years for more weapons. They just traded away Devontae Adams. They lost Marquez Valdez-Scantling here. They do need some help on the outside. I think getting a guy like Drake London, Rodgers will be able to help him get very good very fast.
I also think London, who's not running his 40, still has that nagging ankle injury, which is why, that's my assumption why he's not running it. A guy like Rodgers makes receivers better. So I think at that point, the Packers can truly pick who they think is the best receiver and go from there.
All right, 8 more picks to go. We'll go from 25-28 now. Alan has the Bills taking Penn State wideout Jahan Dotson. I have the Titans taking Georgia linebacker Nakobe Dean. Alan has the Buccaneers taking Michigan safety Daxton Hill. I had the Packers at their second taking Georgia defensive tackle Devontae Wise. A couple of Bulldogs in here from the National Championship team, but Dotson's the Bill. I think is interesting here because I know they let Cole Beasley go. They signed Jamison Crowder in the offseason to help fill that void. I feel like Dotson's filling another slot sort of niche for them.
Yeah, and the thing about Dotson is he's a little bit more versatile than your average receiver in terms of where he can go on the field. Like he's 5'11", but he can be the burner on the sidelines and go up the field, and then he could slide in the slot. And I know you said they sound Crowder, but I think Dotson has way more upside than Crowder does at this point. And he's a 3-sport athlete. He's a guy who's super athletic. And I think they love getting athletes around Josh Allen who can do different things. He can spread the offense. Like I said, he can be a perimeter, receiver, but he can also go across the middle if you need him to. I think there's a lot to like about Dotson, and I think if the Bills were to get him, that'd be a great pickup for them.
Yeah, I think it would be more of a luxury pick for Buffalo where they have so much else. And we can take a guy who we think could be really good in year 2.
Well, I think, honestly, they're going to try and model themselves after the Chiefs and get as many offensive weapons as possible going forward for Josh Allen.
Yeah, speaking of the Chiefs, they have the next 2 picks are our final 4 picks of the first round here. So you have them taking Michigan defenseman David Ajabo at 29. I have them taking Georgia wideout George Pickens at 30. 31, you have the Bengals taking Auburn corner Roger McCreary. And then I wrap up the first round with the Lions taking Georgia safety Lewis Seen. So let's start the 2 Chiefs picks. Why did you have Ajabo going here? I know he was protected going possibly as early as top 15 before he had the injury at the workouts, and now he might miss a significant portion of 2022.
Right, and the fact that the Chiefs have the 2 first-rounders, I think gives them the ability to sign him, for a relatively low first-round deal. And because they have the 2 picks, they can wait and have him kind of rehab and get back to where he needs to be. It was heartbreaking when he went down. But I think with the 2 late first-rounders, to get somebody who may, if he was healthy, have slid up in the draft room, I think to get him and kind of stash him until he's healthy would be a great pickup for them.
Yeah, I think in terms of Pickens, too, they do need a receiver after they traded Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. They did sign MVS and Juju Smith-Schuster, but I do think they've been linked to Pickens a lot. They've worked him out a lot, and I think he's a guy who's kind of gone under the radar in terms of receivers here in the Chiefs. I think this is one where if they don't think he's going to go, because they're trading back in the second round, just taking him there. But I think since we're not trading, I'm just going to take him right here.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are in a really nice spot with these 2 late first rounders, and I'm very intrigued to see what they do.
Yeah, I think they're a prime, like, pick one, trade one spot, I think, in my opinion.
For sure. I could totally see them trading either one, the 29th and 30th doesn't matter. Probably the 30th just out of what makes sense. And picking up like an extra, third and fourth rounder for an early to mid second rounder. I could see that.
Yeah, because this is a spot of the draft where you look at it and you say, oh, like, this is where some of these quarterbacks, like the third, fourth, fifth cross your Matt Corrals and that kind of group, like, they could go here if teams want to get into the first round and get that fifth-year option, which is the value when you have these quarterbacks.
Absolutely, and I've been hearing more buzz about Ritter as well, so I could see Corral and Ritter going late in the first round for sure.
That's where I think Detroit at 32 is interesting. I had them taking Lewis Cine because I think they have a huge need at safety, and he'll be a big asset there. But if they like a quarterback here, whether it is Ritter or Corral, they would be better off just to take them here and make sure you have the 50-year option as opposed to waiting one pick, taking them at 33.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I don't get the vibe that the Lions love any of these quarterbacks, but I could be completely wrong.
This is also another prime trade-off spot. I think if Detroit's sitting at 32, and I'm looking at teams that could see value in trying to get a quarterback here. I'm looking at maybe the Colts, since they're picking relatively early in the second round. You get up here. I know they just got Matt Ryan. They don't have a long-term plan. If you like Matt Corral, just get him and develop him.
Absolutely, I could see that as well.
Absolutely. So that's our mock draft. So we'll see how wrong we are about 5 days. So, Alan, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it.
Mike, it was a pleasure. And, New York football is in a good place for the draft night. Not so much afterwards. Jets more so than Giants in a better spot. But at least for this draft night, it'll be super exciting for our 2 franchises.
Absolutely. If you want to find on social media, how can they do that?
On Twitter at Allen, ALLEN _Austin _, and on Instagram at Allen Austin Sports.
All right, Alan. Thanks all the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.